Y'all, welcome to crunch time. Let's get started.
Waited on my birthday, but you never called me. Guess I just let myself down. Deleted every photo, but when I'm feeling lonely, honestly I still think about that warm summer night at the London Eye. Saw you in the crowd and then you smiled. I miss you and I can't stop writing about you.
Hello everyone, and welcome back to my channel, Just Another Struggling Writer, the beleaguered author's one-stop shop for commiseration and hopefully inspiration. My name is Carrie Scher, and I am just another struggling writer. All right, also, it is now Monday, July 6th, which means I only have 25 days to complete the third draft of my current work in progress, Seekers of Empyrean, which is my modern world urban fantasy about a young woman with a rare magical ability who is recruited by a secret government agency to hunt down a dangerous fugitive in exchange for help solving her mother's mysterious disappearance. And as you may know, if you watched my June writing wrap-up video, you know that I have quite a bit of ground to cover. Actually, 54,000 words, give or take, to reach my target word count of 90,000 in 3.5 weeks. For those keeping count at home, yes, that is well more than a NaNoWriMo traditional pace. If you're following along, you know why this deadline is so important, but if you're new here, I'll rehash. This deadline is important because it is the due date I have to turn in my manuscript for a paid critique. And I have already rescheduled this handover once due to some mental health stuff I was going through in the spring. Originally, I was supposed to turn it in on May 1st, but as I got into April and I had made no progress whatsoever on the book, I ended up contacting Brielle, who is doing the critique for me, and we talked about a new deadline of August 1st. My mental health episode then extended 2 more months through April and all of May, giving me just 2 short months to complete the book. I did make some significant strides in June. I added almost 20,000 words to the manuscript and got some thorny plot details figured out, but the fact of the matter remains that I still have the vast majority of this book left to write, which means I need to call on a level of discipline and commitment that I don't know that I've ever possessed before. So, after giving it some real thought, I have come up with a couple of key components that I think will help form a winning strategy here. Number 1 is I need to be consistent about writing every single day. Now, on its face, that goal is pretty generic and in fact kind of weak sauce because it doesn't actually account for a specific target to hit every day. But consistency has always been an issue I have had to the point where I end up being more of a binge writer, hence 3 weeks to write 54,000 words. Truth be told, I cannot remember the last time that I wrote 25 days in a row. Probably like 2021 when I last participated successfully in Nano, I would guess. Needless to say, it has been something that I have always aspired to but never achieved. We're going to try and fix that over the next couple of weeks. The second thing I think is really important is to set myself up for success by eliminating distractions and utilizing what was, after all, intended as a dedicated writing space. In June, as I was kind of getting back on the wagon, I allowed myself to hang out in my recliner quite a bit as I was doing my writing, which ultimately ended up with the results that I got, where I allowed myself to be distracted, not just by the TV, but because that was my leisure space. I would play games on my laptop instead of using it to write. So my intention is to leave my laptop plugged in here at my desk and not move it to the recliner for any reason, and make this space my actual working space so that when I want to use my computer, I need to sit down here and actually focus on writing. Another component of setting myself up for success is by protecting my writing time. I do tend to be much more of a night writer. I am not a morning person by any stretch of the imagination. I even tell my friends and colleagues that my brain really doesn't start working until 9 a.m. And honestly, given my druthers, I would much rather be a 10 to 11 type of wake up person and going until 2 or 3 in the morning. Unfortunately, I do have a day job, so that's not possible, but it does mean that my creative juices really start flowing at night. And that is even true on the weekends. So this isn't a case of I can just set my alarm earlier and get it out of the way while I'm still fresh, because I am not fresh early in the morning. So by moving my computer into my bedroom and by keeping the door closed and by coming in here at a specific time in the evening, I am hoping to not just cultivate a specific space, but a specific pattern of behavior and routine and a specific time that I will be writing. And my target amount of time spent writing per week is about 20 hours, which is not always going to be achievable. I do have a life outside of this manuscript that will demand time and energy. Today, for example, I am already getting started late because I had a therapy appointment and I had to finish editing a video. Point being that 20 hours is a lot on top of a 40-hour day job and having a family. And I am willing to fudge that number a little bit, provided that I am still being consistent with my daily writing practice. So those are kind of my high-level thoughts on how I'm going to achieve this goal. The only other thing left to do is to actually just fucking write it. So I am going to stop talking and I am going to get down to business. Y'all, welcome to crunch time. Quick recap, and then I do need to be getting to bed. I am so completely wiped out. So it's been about an hour, and it wasn't my greatest writing session. In fact, I only got 396 words, but I was having a little bit of trouble getting started in this scene. This is a completely new scene, and I wasn't really sure how I wanted to tackle it. I think my original thought for this scene was just a little bit too boring. And so I realized as I was getting started, I couldn't just breeze over what I wanted to breeze over. I really did need to get into it. I wrote about 300 words in the first sprint, and between sprints 1 and 2 realized that I didn't love it and it wasn't going to work for me. So I wiped it out and started over. So for the day, only a total of 560 words, but I did cross over the 37,000 word mark. So now I only have 53,000 left to write. That's where I'm at. I'm going to continue plugging away at this scene tomorrow, but I did reach a kind of nice little stopping place where I need to kind of think through the next couple of paragraphs before I get into the actual meat of the scene. Not a great writing day, but I really didn't anticipate a ton of forward momentum in this session, just because first drafting these new scenes is kind of kicking my ass right now. So, and I did have to really think of it as a first draft. I know I am going to do a quick edit pass through it afterwards, but knowing that quick edit pass was coming was the only reason I was able to move on, because I was really struggling with the quality of the sentences. I was really not loving most of this. I'm trying to get back into that first draft mindset. It's just hard when not all of it is being freshly drafted. So, all right, that's it for me. We'll do it again tomorrow, but better.
miss you and I can't stop writing about you.
All right, y'all, here we are. It is day 2, Tuesday, July the 7th. I've had an interesting day with the manuscript. Let me put it that way. I did carve out some time today at work on my lunch break to take a look at what I wrote yesterday and really think hard about how I wanted this scene and chapter to go. And I think part of the reason I really struggled to write last week was not just because of the royal wedding, but also because I was blocked. I was feeling really, really blocked. And the only real writing work that I did last week was I sat down with my notebook and I kind of plotted out the next 4 chapters up through the midpoint, because I realized that because this is all new stuff, this whole section of the book is completely brand new, never been written before. It hasn't been outlined, and I only had kind of a rough idea of what I wanted to do with the sequence of events. And so I sat down with my notebook and I really thought through chapters 13, 14, and 15, and 16, I think. That kind of helped me kind of identify how I wanted to proceed after that little training montage at the end of Act 2 and going into Act 3. The problem is that I really was struggling with how to transition from the training into the next actual scene and moment. I think having a lack of ideas really contributed to me not wanting to even approach my manuscript last week, and it was just easier to allow myself to be distracted. And that kind of has been persisting over the last couple of days as well. I think that was another big reason why I really, really struggled to make any real progress yesterday, is because I'm not loving how I've approached this scene. So today I sat down, I set my timer, and I was adding to what I had written last night, and I got about half an hour in and I realized that it still wasn't quite right. So I ended up actually deleting pretty much everything I wrote yesterday, and the rest of my time writing this afternoon was just brainstorming. I got out a notebook and I just started writing down ideas, what I needed to accomplish with this scene. Because another thing that I realized is that the major B plot that I really struggled to want to integrate has once again absented itself. And since I have embraced the fact that it needs to be a part of the book, I actually need to integrate it. So I've decided this is the ideal moment to do that. I just kind of sat down and say, okay, I need to address this topic, a couple of topics actually, and how do I get there? So the good news is right at the end of my writing time, I think I've gotten through the worst of the block, and I've got what I hope will be a pretty good transition into the bulk of the scene and navigating that plot. Also good news is that I've figured out a way to integrate another scene from draft 2 that I was really struggling with where I was going to put it with how everything is being rearranged. And I was kind of worried that my initial instinct to put it closer to the end of Act 3 was way too late. And so now it's going to be right at the front of Act 3. And I feel like that it is an appropriate time to explore this information. It is just after 9 o'clock and I am just now getting started. I am once again completely wiped out, but I feel like I do have more energy today than I did yesterday. It's helping that I'm getting started closer to on time. Oh, it's only 9. It's not after 9. Perfect. Okay, so my goal is to do a full ladder today. Hopefully that will get me through at least my word count goal for the day. Probably not, because I erased 500 words, so I have that working against me. So that's kind of where I'm at, and let's go ahead and get this ladder going. Well, hello there. It is now just about 11 o'clock, and while I didn't do a full ladder, in fact, I've got just over 30 minutes left on my last 48-minute sprint, I think I am going to call it here for the night. I've done some good work, I think. On paper, I did 2,031 words, which is including the 500-ish words I took away this afternoon. That being said, the vast majority of those were copied from draft 2, and I have been kind of slowly working my way into integrating them into a new lead up to this information. But I have just reached a point where I need to do a little bit of brainstorming to make sure that I am integrating the A plot and the B plot nicely together, because this is the moment where the character is experiencing them both at the same time, and I just want to make sure that I do that well in a way that advances the plot. So I am gonna call it here for the night and lay in bed and do some brainstorming, but I feel really good about this. I'm really glad I figured out a way to integrate this scene, because it does have a lot of really interesting information, and again, it does thread in the B plot into the A plot nicely. The only problem is by doing it here, I have kind of kicked the can down the road into the next chapter, where the words I erased earlier today are going to have to reappear in terms of like the original configuration of this scene is going to have to reappear in the very next chapter. So I may have some more struggles, but I think what I've done here is I've made it a little bit easier to get there. Whereas earlier I was struggling to connect Act 2 into Act 3, and I think this scene and chapter has done a good job of flowing one into the next. Hopefully it won't be as much of a struggle. Yeah, so total word count 2,031. According to my word count tracker, I need to be writing 2,400 words a day, so I did come short of that, but a far better day than I had yesterday, and I'm just feeling a lot better about where I'm at in this act, especially because the last week or so I've been kind of in a weird space with it. Because anyway, I talked about that earlier. I'm not going to go over it again. I'm tired. I don't want to go to bed. So that's a wrap on day 2, and I'll see you tomorrow. For the record, the just over 2,000 words I just quoted you was according to my word processor, which I have noted in the past can be kind of janky. But according to my spreadsheet, I did 2,400 words. So I'm counting it. Good morning, y'all. Sorry about the weird light. The sun is directly in front of me, and there's really nothing I can do about that. But I did just want to stop and check in with you guys, because I realized that I forgot to mention something to you last night. Something that I ended up doing yesterday was revisiting a previous scene in which Arceli, the main character, is learning the magic system. As I have mentioned before, it is based on physical movement, and in order to cast a spell, you need to perform a very specific, precise set of movements in order to make the spell work. And part of the problem, and I am really excited about this magic system. I'm hoping that it is really engaging for the readers and really fun and hopefully a little bit different. But part of the problem with it is that it has a visual component. And as I mentioned in a video last week, I have aphantasia, which is a inability to really visualize or imagine things in my head, and that has made actually describing the physical movements really hard for me, because I can't visualize them. I just know the concept that they are moving. In previous drafts and even earlier in this draft, I had to think really hard whenever I was describing the magic for the reader and for the main character. It took me a while to kind of come up with how I wanted the body movements to be. And so when it came time to the actual training portion, I just sort of glossed over it. I just basically described it as being complicated and that the main character had to take a long time to really get it down. After a couple of days after I wrote that scene, I was already pretty dissatisfied with it. I was just I just knew that wasn't going to be enough for the reader. And I can't really skimp on those descriptions, because again, this magic system is a key component of this story and what makes this story, I feel stand out. So something that I did last night was I went back to that scene and I actually like thought about what I wanted the movements to be. I'm still not totally like convinced I'm doing it well. In theory, the movements are kind of martial arts like or inspired, kind of Tai Chi like, except faster. So I ended up having to like look up martial arts on YouTube to get some ideas of what I wanted the movements specifically of the arms to be. So yeah, I did end up coming up with something, and I was able to add about 200 words to a scene that was feeling a little short and a little bit lacking in details in an area that it actually really does matter. So anyway, I just wanted to mention that that was something that I had to do, and it's something that is coming up in the next chapter. I'm going to do a sparring scene where the main character is kind of showing what she's learned so far. So it's going to come up again pretty soon. And then of course the major fight scene at the 65% mark, and then the climax as well. I just think it was really important for me to force myself to address it, because it's not gonna go away. Again, this is a foundational aspect of the story. Something else I forgot to mention last night is I have a baseball game today. So it is Wednesday morning and I do have a baseball game today. My mom is out of town, so I'm taking my daughter with me. But yeah, I am probably not going to be home until close to 10 p.m. and I will be probably pretty wiped out because of all the walking around and everything at the baseball game. I'm hoping to really maximize my time on my lunch today. Realistically, my hope is to just finish out this chapter and then do an edit pass. I probably have maybe 600 words to write to kind of stitch together all of the pieces that I took from draft 2 and all of the new components that I need to make it make sense. I even may end up taking some things out of the stuff that I took from draft 2 just because it's not all relevant anymore. I just did a bulk copy paste last night, and then like I said, do my edit pass, and that might just be have to be what it is for today. Today is not going to be my best writing day, but that is just my life right now. I better go get my day started and we will chat later. It is now Thursday morning, and as I expected, I got no writing done yesterday, like at all, not even on my lunch. And then when I got back from the baseball game, I knew I would be way too tired to do anything, and that was true. I came home and I pretty much immediately got in bed. So for Wednesday, a big fat goose egg. But that wasn't really that much of a surprise. I knew the game was coming and I knew that I probably wasn't going to get much done. Today, for Thursday, however, I do have some writing goals and plans. I do have a doctor's appointment later this afternoon. My intention was to go home afterwards, but it's seeming like that's not going to be possible. We are just way too short-staffed right now to justify me going home an hour and a half early when I could come back to the office. So, oh well, that's not the end of the world. That just means that my kind of pie in the sky goal of coming home early, filming a video, getting it edited and uploaded before writing time is not going to happen, which it probably wasn't going to anyway. There will definitely be no video tomorrow, which will be last week for you guys. Time travel. As far as my writing plans go, when I left off on Tuesday night, I needed to do a little bit of thinking about how I wanted to round out chapter 13, because most of what I had copied in from draft 2 was good and fine and appropriate and good information, but I just needed to figure out a way how I was going to link it back to, I think I mentioned it in the clip from Tuesday, but like this scene helps link the A plot and the B plot, and I needed to figure out how I was going to like address it or how I was going to make that link. I knew kind of how I was going to do it, but I didn't really have a good sense of it. And I thought about it in the car on the way here. And while it still doesn't have like real definition, like I know exactly what the sentences are going to be, I do have a general idea of how to proceed and how to make this link, and more importantly, how it is going to directly lead into chapter 14, because I have been struggling so much with closing these chapters out and making them flow into the next one. And I think my brainstorming in the car this morning helped me create that flow. I need to actually get into the document and draft the sentences. I don't anticipate it being too much more, maybe 500 to 600 words, maybe less, and then I can get into chapter 14. But before I get into chapter 14, I will need to edit through chapter 13. I don't think that both of those things will happen. Finishing chapter 13 and editing chapter 13 will happen before I have to leave for my doctor's appointment. So I may just have to consign editing until later today when I get home. And then I need to get into chapter 14. And chapter 14 is going to be broken up into 2 scenes, a short scene at the beginning and then a longer scene, which is more magical combat, which will take extra mental labor from me because of what I talked about the last time with having to really think through it and not being able to really picture it in my head and having to, anyway. But I also think it'll be exciting, at least for the reader. So I think it's just super important to make sure that we're seeing the combat, or we're seeing the magic in practical situations as often as possible, to just keep it at the forefront of the reader's minds, and just help keep things kind of exciting, because I do think that the combat in the magic system is one of the most exciting parts. I don't know how much of that I'll get through today. I don't see myself finishing chapter 13 and writing all of chapter 14 before the end of the day. Those are kind of my writing plans. I don't know how I feel about this look today. Oh well. Let's get started. Hey y'all, it is now Thursday evening, and I'm not gonna lie to you guys, I am dragging significant ass. So badly that when I got home from work today, I got changed and I was like, okay, I've got about half an hour before I need to start dinner. I could fold some laundry, or I could get started on some video edits. And instead I laid down on the couch and took a 20-minute nap, and yet I am still feeling pretty wiped. However, I'm able to sit here because I am feeling kind of eager and, dare I say, excited to get back into the draft, because I was able to get a little bit done at work, but I ran into, I wouldn't say an issue, it just, something came up at the end of chapter 13. Something that has been kind of nagging at me since draft 2, and that is, without getting into spoiler territory, it has to do with the major, 60% mark reveal that is pretty set in stone and is not changing, and a different kind of reveal that has sort of been teased a little bit, and in some ways is just a subset or lighter version of the big reveal. I would say it qualifies as a darling, but it is one that I could be comfortable cutting. And so I reached the end of chapter 13, and the way that I was writing it really focused on this reveal. Not really even a reveal, just sort of a aha moment for the character. I don't know. I was just wondering if by including it here, I'm first of all jumping the shark with the later reveal and dampening its impact, or taking focus away from what this section of the plot is actually supposed to be about. I thought about it in the car on my way to my doctor's appointment today, and I think I figured out how to include it, but not let it take too much oxygen from the next part of the plot, which is moving into the midpoint. I managed to tap out a few sentences while I was waiting for my doctor's appointment. That is one reason I do love using a cloud-based word processor, but that was the last chance I had to really look at it. All of that to say, I am tired. I'm probably not going to be able to do a full ladder tonight. Best case, an hour, but with luck, I'll be able to turn that hour into some really productive words. Wow, I even look like a zombie. So yeah, that's it. My goal for this session is just to kind of clean up the end of chapter 13 and then do an edit pass of it and then clean up the couple of paragraphs I wrote at the beginning of chapter 14 and get ready to write the meat of that. If I'm lucky, I'll get through that entire first scene of chapter 14, which shouldn't be very long, maybe 800 words. If I can get those 3 things done, finish chapter 13, do my edit pass, and then write the first short scene of chapter 14, I think this will be a really good session. I'm not going to ramble any longer because the longer I ramble, the longer it takes to get into the words, and then the longer it takes for me to go to bed. Let's do it.
Settling in, settling down. Falling in love, not falling out. I keep on falling in. Each of us both done in the crown. A crown, a crown, a crown. A king and a queen, royally bound. Yeah.
All right, y'all. It is now too close to midnight for comfort, and I am wrapping up for the night. I did end up taking a little bit of a break in the middle there to watch the end of the baseball game because, Mama loves a walk-off win. So really, I only wrote for like an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours. No, it was like an hour and a half. I got more than I expected to get when I first sat down, mostly because I just was really determined to finish that first scene of chapter 14, which ended up being like twice as long as I anticipated. So yes, I did finish chapter 13 and I did edit through it. I originally had kind of 2 different endings that were both in the document, and I was thinking I would just delete one or the other, but I ended up deciding to kind of merge them into one, and that kind of helps me keep everything on focus, like on the the point that it needs to be on. And then I got into chapter 14, and I had a couple of paragraphs already that I had written earlier in the day. It just ended up being way longer. A random side plot is being teased out in a way that I didn't anticipate or plan for, really. It has been just really useful in terms of filler. Not filler, but it has just been a really useful connective tissue, I guess I should say, between plotted moments and conversations. And I'm not really sure how I feel about it or how it's going to tie up at the end. It's just one of those things that's just kind of coming out on its own, and I'm like, oh, is this what being a pantser feels like, where it just develops? So anyway, my total, according to my word count tracker, I got 1,310 words on the day. I am up over the 40,000 word mark. That was actually my entire goal, was to get to 40,000 today, regardless of where that ended up. And then after I hit it, I was like, oh, I better just finish this scene tonight so I don't have to think about it tomorrow. That's good news. Not really bad news, sort of okay-ish news, is I'm probably going to end up going a tiny bit over 90,000 just based on where I'm at right now. Because of how long this scene ended up going, I was already looking at maybe pushing over 1,000 extra words at the midpoint. And when I did my calculations in draft 1, I was almost exactly spot on double from the midpoint. So I feel pretty confident that whatever I'm at the midpoint, I can double it, and that would be a really accurate assessment of where I should be, or where my word count will fall by the end of the draft. And it's right now just looking like I'm going to be a little bit over 90, which is fine. It's not the end of the world. I can stomach between 2,000 and 3,000 words at the end, or even up to 5,000. Once we starting getting past 5,000, then I'm going to get concerned, but I don't think I don't think I'll do that. So that's pretty much it. I'm going to go to bed now. My plan for the weekend is to make up what I have not done over the course of the week so far, which is quite a lot because I have only hit my target word count once this week. And if you take into account the fact that I basically didn't write anything on Monday because I erased all the words that I did do, and I didn't write anything at all yesterday, it's going to be a long writing weekend again. I know I just did a 10K, but I might be doing another one. But that's the crunch life for you. That's what we got to do. So I'm going to go to bed so that I will have the energy to actually get started on that big writing weekend after I get home from work tomorrow. And we will just Do it all again.
Both called from the beginning.
Hey y'all. It is now Friday evening and I am at Best Buy. Why am I at Best Buy on Friday evening? Let me tell you a story. A couple weeks ago, I noticed that the frame of my laptop right there in the bottom left corner around the monitor was starting to come apart. Not sure really why or what happened or how it got damaged. No idea. And at first it wasn't that big a deal because I could just pop the little piece of the frame that was sticking out back into place. But over the last couple of weeks, it has gotten just worse and worse and worse and worse and worse. Last night, after I got done talking to you fine people, I went to go close my computer so I could go to bed, and I didn't want to close all the way. And so I opened it back up and things were starting to actually come out from the monitor. Technical, bits of hardware were starting to fall through this broken part of the frame. And I was like, oh my God, that's horrible. And so I was trying to get everything kind of back into position, and all that ended up accomplishing was this. Yeah, so it's fucked up. pretty bad. And I'm concerned that it's not fixable, because I had previously had issues with the charging port, and I had called around to a couple of computer shops in the area and Best Buy itself, and they all said that they don't solder or do anything with the frame except for one specific place. So here's the deal. I am lucky enough to own a desktop computer as well. That's where I do all my video editing and video gaming. And because I use a cloud-based word processor, yes, I am able to use it to write as well. I just really don't like to. I mean, obviously I can, and if I'm struck by inspiration while I'm sitting there, I will add words to the manuscript. But it's just, the desktop is in the gaming room where my partner's computer is, and it's not a good space to really concentrate on writing. And so I really do need a laptop, not just because I don't want to be married to that computer, but also when I'm physically not in the same space as my desktop computer. Next week when I am traveling to San Antonio for Allstate, I need to have a laptop. So I did what any reasonable person would do, and I just went on bestbuy.com and basically bought the exact same computer. Yeah. So instead of spending my entire evening writing, which was my original intention, I'm now going to have to spend a good portion of it imaging this new computer to my OneDrive so I could download all my stuff to it and be able to work. So it's going swell. So while we wait for my new computer to get its mind right, there was something else that I was kind of going through today that I wanted to talk about. And that is, I've been having a little bit of a crisis of confidence with the manuscript lately. And it's been niggling at me for the last couple of days, maybe a week. And it really came out in force today that this is a bad book. And I know we all go through periods like this where we really struggle to believe in our projects, especially when we're in the middle of a revision. But it really came out today because, just for fun, I went back and rewatched the last couple of vlogs of me finishing draft 1. And as a result, I was inspired to go back and reread the end of draft 1. You guys may remember that I didn't actually finish draft 2. I got to about the 60%, 65% mark, and then realized it wasn't going to work. And most of the ending was the same as draft 1 anyway. So I decided I needed to completely rethink the middle section and start draft 3 rather than waste time going through the ending of draft 2, right? I mentioned that because it just means that it's been a while since I've actually looked at the end of draft 1, the end of the book, which is basically staying the same, barring some tweaks to update the context, but the actual events and really a good portion of the narration, the words themselves, will be staying the same. But as I was reading through those last couple of chapters, first of all, I was it was pretty janky. I mean, it was a first draft, but there was some really, really good stuff in there. But what sent me down the rabbit hole was one particular moment, paragraph, discussion thing that I came up with. Sorry, food arrived. Anyway, there was one particular moment in the climax that I kind of came up with on the fly when I was drafting draft one, but it very, 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 very nicely tied three key things together and actually provided a good explanation for... I'm trying to figure out how to say this without spoiling it. The dark night of the soul for this book is the main character becoming disillusioned and wanting to pull out of this world that she has just joined for reasons. And this moment really, really nicely tied some things together and provided a good reason why she would come back. And unfortunately, one of those three things was cut in between drafts. Well, it was delayed. I had decided I was going to lift it out and save it for book 2. But I didn't consider at the time that I made that decision how it would kind of invalidate this moment, this explanation, this way of tying these three pieces of stuff together. And without it, it kind of eliminates the plausible explanation for why she would come back. And while I think I could probably live without it, I think I'm probably smart enough to come up with a new reason in this draft because, again, so much is different. I kind of want to bring it back. My only issue and fear is that it will end up making the second half of the book feel way, way, way too busy. But that being said, I had mentioned that I was starting to fear that I was not actually going to have enough material between the midpoint and like the 65% mark. I had like certain plot points that I knew I needed to hit, but I wasn't sure it was enough. I don't know. I am wanting to reinsert this plot point I had cut and reintegrate it, but I'm concerned that it will bloat the second half of the book. So what I'm going to do for right now is I'm going to eat my dinner that just arrived, and then I'm going to sit with my notebook and see if I could reinsert this plot point without dramatically overinflating the section of the story. It's going to be from about the midpoint up until about what should be the 65-70% mark. I think there is some room for maneuvering with the Dark Night of the Soul section. I had thought about reintroducing a scene and chapter that was in my original outline and that I had every intention of writing, but when I was drafting draft 1, when I arrived at that moment, it just no longer felt necessary. And so I cut it and you would never miss it. And so I was thinking that maybe I would bring that back because it is a little bit more appropriate for how this draft has been constructed. I don't know, but maybe I don't need it. I know that I don't need it. Obviously, it didn't even exist in draft 1. I'm just saying words now, I feel like. Anyway, so I'm going to eat my dinner. I'm going to wait for my OneDrive to download onto this computer so I can have my life back. What I'm going to focus on is plotting out the chapters from the midpoint all the way up until the end. Quite by accident, I have arrived at the conclusion that I'm probably going to end up with exactly 30 chapters, just the way that Act 2 shook out and the way that Act 3 is shaking out. The midpoint will be at chapter 15. So I would like to see if I can fit everything I intend to do in 15 chapters. But I also am aware that I undersell myself when I tend to do these experiments. But I was able to really like narrow my focus and winnow down enough to get Act 2 almost exactly where it needed to be. So maybe I can do it. But anyway, so that's what I'm going to do for right now, since I can't actually be in the draft at the moment. Yeah, I'm gonna try that and see what's possible.
I knew that the right to be nice. Knew that the right to be nice. We do what we gotta do to stay winning. The fuss and the fights will keep out the same, the same, the same, the same. Ay. I love you better today than yesterday. Every day is gonna play out the same.
Okay, so I've come to the conclusion that I'm probably overthinking it. And yet I still kind of want to squeeze it in there, but I think it will just make it too overcrowded, even if the word count isn't enormous. I do think that putting this plot point back in would just make it too overcrowded. And I did design all of Act 3 to be different from Draft 1 and to kind of stand on its own from Draft 1. And while I really like this plot point, which is why it was in Draft 1 in the first place, and I am looking forward to writing it eventually in later books, I don't see how I could reinsert it without screwing up the equilibrium of how I designed this new Act 3. So I think the conclusion is that as much as I would like to write it, I have to leave it out. The only problem that leaves me with is I still have some holes to fill at the end of Act 3 and then in Act 4 as well. I don't know what I'm going to do about that quite yet. I would love to go lay down and think about it, but I think what I actually need to do is actually just set it aside for now and not worry about it and just write chapter 14. Just move on. And because I'm not to the point where I really need to think about it, and it is, just as likely that I'll come up with the answers I need before I get there, just through the process of, writing. And also there is the fact that I'm still desperately behind, quite desperately. So my computer is now fully up and running. And so instead of going to bed or taking a nap like I very much want to, I am going to get to work. I am going to work today from here just because as part of this whole computer change ordeal, I ended up deciding to buy a new monitor stand. The one that I currently have, I inherited from work, and it is a little bit wobbly. I don't know if you notice that sometimes when I film at my desk, the camera wobbles, and that's because it is sitting on that monitor stand, and anytime I remotely touch the desk, it wobbles. I bought a new monitor stand and a monitor so that I can plug my computer into the monitor and just make it feel more like a real workspace rather than just a temporary place that I need to go if I want to concentrate. To that end, I'm going to spend my writing time out here tonight because that's not all set up yet. So anyway, yeah. So I'm going to go get my heated blanket. I'm going to put my leftovers in the fridge. I have the baseball game on mute. I don't have to. I can just glance up and see what's going on if I need to. And then we're going to have to get to work. My current totals that I need, if I want to meet my hours worked goal for this week, I need to write 14 hours between now and Sunday. So I'm going to try and do 4 hours. Oh, it's 8 o'clock already. We'll see. Try and do 4 hours tonight and then maybe 6 hours tomorrow and then the rest on Sunday. I do have a paper I need to write, but apart from that, I don't got much going on. All right, well, thanks for bearing witness to my momentary crisis. I just really hope this book is good. I just really hope this book is good. I haven't even written half of the new stuff yet. I still have 3 chapters that are all completely brand new. Yeah, the rest of 14, 15, 16. Yeah. And I'm having a crisis where I'm just what if it's not good? What if I think it's good because it's different, but it's not actually good? Anyway, I'll never find out if I don't write, so off we go. Okay, y'all. So here's the deal. It is now Sunday afternoon at 1 o'clock, and the amount of words I have written since we last spoke. I tried. I really did. I had the manuscript open. I was looking at it. I retyped the opening line of the next scene probably half a dozen times, and I just couldn't get past it. I just couldn't. And then I got up this morning and I thought about just coming straight to the chair and writing. And then instead of doing that, I got up, I brushed my teeth, and I went to my other computer and played video games until about an hour and a half ago. And then I took a little nap. It's bad. It's pretty bad. Also, you're in a very precarious position. Don't do it. I can see you thinking about it. here we are. It is 10 after 1, and I just have to sit down and get over myself basically and do it. My goals for the day: finish chapter 14, edit chapter 14, write chapter 15, and write chapter 16. Those are the chapters I have pretty well planned in my head. I say that. Chapter 15 is not super well planned. It's the midpoint, and I have the general shape of it in mind, but those are the ones that are definitely, regardless of how I feel about what I talked about last night, the same. So today, 14, 15, and 16. So I was thinking about it, and I was like, if I'm going for a 30 chapter goal, then all I have to do is write a chapter a day, right? Getting out ahead of the chapters because I know that I'm not going to be doing that during the week. And I have my San Antonio trip coming up. Anyway, that's the goal for the day. That would be about between 7,000 and 8,000 words. We'll see if that happens. I'm going to jump into the sprinting channel. There's some people doing some sprints and I'm hoping to take advantage. Oh yeah, I also have the rest of the monitor stand coming. So here in a couple hours, I'll take a break and get that set up, and then I will move in there. And then I also have a paper to write. It's not terribly long, only 2 to 3 pages, but it's part of my final project. So I do need to do some quality work. I'm so ready to be done with this degree program, y'all. I'm so tired of it. But I'm like also so close to the end that it wouldn't make sense to just drop right now. That's where I'm at. I'm gonna do some sprints, and I guess I'll check in with y'all. How about I check in with y'all when I finish chapter 14?
Growing as one, not growing apart. Say what we mean, say it from the heart. From the heart. Wrinkles and grays, don't be alarmed, because you're safe with me. The beautiful signs of our story so far.
Okay, y'all, checking in. It is now just after 4:30, and I have great news. I was able to finally finish chapter 14. I got into the Discord and I did some sprints with the writing group, and that worked out so beautifully. It is like, I don't know why I avoid it so much. It is still incredible to me how much body doubling works for me, because literally the instant we started a sprint with the group, the resistance disappeared. And I just was like, okay, buckling down and doing it. So I ended up finishing out chapter 14. I added just over 1,600 words. It took me about 90 minutes of actual sprinting time. It was about 2 hours total, including the breaks in between the sprints. And then I took another hour or so to edit through chapter 14, and I think it's in a really good spot. I had a really cute idea for that second scene, and yeah, I'm pretty happy with it. And now I can actually move on to the midpoint chapter, chapter 15. Now, again, this is a brand new chapter. I say that, but there will be some words that I'll copy in, but in the actual midpoint itself is different from draft 2. So there will be freshly drafted stuff again. I've already kind of done a bullet point list of how I want it to go. I'm feeling creatively energized and I really want to get back into it. And I think I have a really, really good chance of finishing chapter 15 today and potentially getting all the way through chapter 16 today. The only thing with chapter 15 is that it'll probably be really long. I'm thinking like 4,000 words, just because there's a lot of ground to cover, which will push me over my target word count. Of course, the midpoint target for a 90,000 word count goal is 45. I am currently sitting at like 41 and a half. So if it's 4,000, then I'm going to go over. It actually might be closer to 42. So I'm looking at probably going over my word count target of like 1,000 words. But if that's the price I have to pay, I am very fine with that. I think a final total of 92,000 words is not by any stretch of the imagination the end of the world. The other thing that I'm really happy about is I finally kind of at last put to bed those lingering doubts I had last night about including this certain plot point. While I do think there is a version of this manuscript where those scenes and that plot point could work, it just no longer works in this version of the draft. I have just done all my brainstorming and my outlining and my planning to not account for it and to try and slip it back in. It would just throw off too many things. It doesn't work. And I think I finally accepted that during this last writing session, because when I sat down, I still was kind of in the back of my mind trying to figure out how I could fit it in. It's bittersweet. It's definitely a darling that I thought I had put to bed 6 months ago, and it came back up, and I really do love it, and I really am looking forward to writing it. Just not in this book. Now, that being said, I am going to take a short writing break because as part of this whole situation with my computer, I finally just decided to go ahead and reorganize my writing desk. I think I mentioned it yesterday, I'm totally in love with this stand. It's very wobbly, as you can see. It just makes it so that when I'm filming and doing stuff here at the desk, that it just sort of shifts, and I don't love that. And I also bought myself a monitor to plug into my laptop so that when I am here at my desk, I do have a big monitor, and I don't know, it'll just feel more like an actual workspace rather than the temporary workspace it feels like when it's just my laptop, because it's just so easy to unplug my laptop and just go and sit in the recliner. So I'm hoping that with this new workstation, the new stand that I bought, which will be able to hold my laptop and the monitor and any other sort of things that I might need, it'll just feel more intentional about making the space a workspace that I use on a hopefully regular basis from now on. So I'm going to clean off my desk. I'm going to get the monitor stand set up and get the monitor set up and hopefully get it all in working order so that I can finish out the day sitting here getting chapters 15 and hopefully 16 done tonight. And that will put me in really good position. I'll still need to do a bunch of work tomorrow, not to mention my paper. If I can get through 15 and 16 tonight, I'll feel so much better about the loafing around I did earlier this week. So quick break and then back to it.
So far, both called it from the beginning. We called it. We knew that there had to be us. Knew that there had to be us. What we gotta do to stay winning. Gonna play out the same. This is gonna play out the same. I love you better today than yesterday. And every day it's gonna play out the same. It's gonna play out the same. La da 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 play out the same. I love you better today than yesterday.
Okay, so here it is, my new setup. I'm not gonna lie, I'm a little bit unhappy with it, but it's not the fault of anything but my desk. I originally purchased this desk when we were still living in the trailer and space was at a real premium. And so I got it to be compact and really simple. And it has worked out for me really well thus far, but it is just a little small. It is what it is. I'm not buying a new desk right now. That is definitely not in my time or energy or budget to really think about. That might be a next year thing, but for now, I think this setup is going to have to just work. Yep, the laptop screen is a little cut off, but I don't intend to use that for anything except maybe my sprint timer or my ambient music while I do the majority of the work from this screen here. So, it also doesn't help that the desk is also functioning as my side table. So the lamp is there. This is where I put my glasses at the end of the night. So it just is what it is. We're going to have to live with it. And by we, I mean me. Just to catch you up, I actually did get quite a bit more work done after I turned off the camera. I just was feeling really strongly about continuing on. Even though I was at a good stopping point, I just felt really motivated and really strongly about continuing. So I'm actually 2/3 of the way through chapter 15 right now. I probably need about another 1,000 words, which will put me at 3,500 and about 700 to 800 words over the count, which I am totally fine with. I have just taken a break to eat dinner and get all of this set up. So I think what I'm going to do next is just get settled into this new space and get another writing sprint going, because I'm very surprised at how well this whole venture has gone today, and I don't want to lose momentum. So this is the new space. Again, don't totally love it, but I'm satisfied with it. I like having the big screen, and I think being able to sit down and think of this as a actual working space will really, really help me. If I had thought of it, I would have bought a monitor that you could turn, and maybe I will still buy a mount that I can turn. I think I would need to buy a whole new monitor though. That would suck. So that way it could be a long ways, and that would actually really improve my space situation. Let me ponder that. But for now, I'm gonna get my water. I'm gonna get my heated blanket, and I'm gonna do some more writing, guys. Yay! Okay, y'all. It is now just about 9:45, and I have just finished, I think, chapter 15. It was getting much longer than I anticipated, and I came to a point that would make a really good, mic drop moment at the end of the chapter. So I decided to do some rearranging. There was going to be one more big thing that happened, and I'm going to put that in chapter 16 as a retrospective, as Arceli remembering that it happened, so that I could get out of that chapter. In chapter 16 originally, I was worried it was going to be a little short anyway. By combining that retrospective with the actual stuff I have planned for chapter 16, I'm thinking it'll work. I hope. So the good news is that I only went 500 words over. So I'm going to update my word count target to account for the extra words. I did this in draft 1 and it was pretty close. I projected 105,000 words based on the midpoint and then ended up with 106,000 and change. So I feel like I can pretty closely predict the final word count based on where I'm at in the midpoint. So I'm going to add 1,000 words to my target, and we'll just see how accurate that ends up being. I'm going to do a quick edit pass of chapter 15, and then I'm going to get my notebook back out and do a bullet point breakdown of chapter 16, just with these changes that I'm making, and just to make sure that I'm really solid on where I want to go and how I want to tackle it. I'm feeling pretty tired, I will say that. So chapter 16 might not be doable today. I am up over 5,000 words, and I did hit the midpoint, which is really, really exciting. But I haven't done any homework today, which means it's all got to be done tomorrow. I've got laundry to do. Anyway, I probably should push through. I probably should and finish chapter 16 so I don't have to do it tomorrow. But I'm going to do my quick edit pass, and that's it, I guess. Here we go. Hey y'all, it is now approaching 7 o'clock on Sunday evening. And while I have not been writing, I am happy to say that at least I have not been idle. Actually, it's been a pretty productive day. I got up first thing and spent about 3 hours writing my paper. It was my least favorite kind of paper, a research paper. Give me an opinion piece all day over something that has a requirement of 6 to 8 sources. That was pretty mentally taxing, I fear. So after I was done, I laid down and took a short nap, not a tremendously long one. Then I got up and I filmed a video and made some lunch. Went to go start editing the video, but then I realized I had a huge backlog of footage I needed to transfer to my computer for this vlog. And so that ended up taking an hour. So while I was waiting for all the footage to transfer, I worked on editing this vlog because, spoiler alert, well, I guess if you're watching this part of the vlog, but it's fucking long. So anyway, I thought it was probably a good thing to force myself to go ahead and get some of that edited. Especially since I will be out of town on Thursday and Friday. So I really do need to get it edited quickly and prepared to post while I'm out. Then I edited the video I filmed today and scheduled that. And then I went back and edited some more of the vlog. So anyway, I've done quite a bit of work actually. I've watched a lot of Kate Kavanaugh videos. I'm almost caught up with Kate, which is exciting because she is a real inspo for the working writer. Someone who is working as a writer. And while I am unable to do it full time like she does, it does give me energy to kind of see what her process is and how she navigates the myriad tasks a working writer has to handle. So anyway, so it hasn't been a good writing day, but it has been a productive day, one that needed to be done regardless. Because like I said, coming up this week, I've got some other things that I need to take care of, and so it'll feel really nice to arrive at those days and not have to be stressed about the things that I didn't get done, because they will have already been done. So with that said, it is now, like I said, almost 7:00, and my goal is to just finish out the day writing, probably until about 11, when I'll have to break and take a shower and get ready for work. I think what I'm going to do, because I was just so tired last night. I don't even think I told y'all, now that I think about it. I tapped out about halfway through editing chapter 15. I did my quick line level pass, and then I went to go do my filtering words search and removal. And I got about halfway through that, and I was like, I can't do it. I was so tired. So I think what I will do to ease myself back into the writing is finish that out. And then I'm going to sit with my notebook for a few minutes and plot chapter 16, because I haven't done that yet. And I feel like it's going to be really important for me to do that. And then get through chapter 16, edit chapter 16, and then maybe do the same plotting process for chapter 17. Chapter 17 is another brand new chapter. Let me think here. Yeah, brand new. Then I am into the sequence of events that I have been avoiding thinking about since I rethought draft 3 back in May, because a very major scene and plot point, the way that we arrived at it in draft 1 and draft 2, no longer work. And I have been kind of telling myself this whole time, it'll come to me, I'll figure it out. And I still haven't. Yikes. It's a real shame. Anyway, I'm not going to think about that right now. For right now, just focusing on chapter 16, getting that all squared away, plotting chapter 17, probably, hopefully getting started on chapter 17. That'll be probably all I can do in the time that I have. I may slip into the Discord and do some body doubling. That has been tremendously helpful lately. Look at me. I'm sitting down hours ahead of schedule on a Sunday. Who is she? I think I have a problem. I have been sitting here for about the last 30 minutes or so trying to get started on chapter 16. I did do a quick bullet point, but I have come to the conclusion, I think, that the part I kind of was able to skip over last night because I came to a nice little conclusion to chapter 15 and opening to chapter 16, I think I need it. It's too important. Yes, I could do it retrospectively, but I just think it would lose its impact. This is the midpoint. I can't cut corners. It's a problem because I think I'm going to have to add a chapter and make chapter 16 the actual midpoint chapter. Like, that's where it'll go to 50%, and then recalculate my end word count again, which will now probably be closer to 95,000. Maybe even 96. Ugh. I've been sitting here thinking about it and beating my head against it, and I just don't think I should skip really being detailed about this scene. And the other thing is, the midpoint, something I feel really strongly about the midpoint is that it should be the moment that your protagonist, your main character, shifts from reacting to being proactive. And it occurred to me while I was sitting here that in this version of events, Arceli does not start being proactive at all, pretty much until the climax. So I think I need to rethink things. So I'm going to get my notebook back out. I know how chapter 16, the new version of chapter 16, will pretty much go, but then I just need to decide how to proceed from there. With the extra chapter, is it possible to now put in that plot point I was talking about on Friday? Potentially. Is that a good idea? We just don't know.
I love you better today than yesterday. Than yesterday. It's gonna play out the same. It's gonna play out the same. It's gonna play out the same.
Okay, it is about 8:45 now, and I have just finished a chapter by chapter breakdown of the second half of this book. I hate to say it, but I am going back on what I had decided on Friday, and I am in fact going to bring that plot point that I had cut from draft 1 back in. And the crazy thing is I think I can do it and still keep it at 30 chapters. I don't know that I would have believed that before, but after what I was able to accomplish with Act 2, I think that I probably can do it. The only thing is, by bringing this plot point back in, it's just going to make a couple of things a bit incongruous, so I'm going to have to backtrack a little bit and take some stuff out, which is fine, that'll save me on word count, but I'm just a little bit, I don't know, I'm feeling unusually hung up on the structure and making sure the midpoint is exactly the midpoint. And I don't see how chapter 16 is anything but the midpoint, but I don't have 16 additional chapters in the back half. I only have 14. Like, is that okay? It's very action-packed. So while the word count won't be an exact match, it'll be very, very action-packed. In fact, there was one chapter where it's like not really action-packed. It's more of a character chapter where she and her like main like point of contact within the agency, like her handler, are finally like getting to know each other on more than a superficial level. And when I was putting it down in this breakdown, I was like, oh, I don't know if this is enough for its own chapter. It was in draft 1, but again, that's something that's going to change. I think I really do like this version of events. It brings in a plot point I was really excited about in draft 1 that I had accepted I was going to have to cut. It makes it so that the last 4 chapters I barely will need to touch in terms of editing. It's just almost going to be straight copy paste. Just a couple of minor tweaks, and that's about it. Which will really, really save me on time, which is good because, you know, I'm concerned about time. So this is kind of a wild turn of events, I'm not gonna lie. I wasn't really expecting it to kind of work out that way, but I've been looking at draft 2 and draft 1, and yeah, I mean, I'm pretty sure I could do it. And that was even including 2 chapters for the big fight scene at the 65% mark. Originally, in like the original draft 1 outline, it was only 1 chapter, but then it just ended up dragging on really long, and so I made it 2 chapters, plus a setup chapter, and I kept all of that in this, and I still ended up at exactly 30, plus the epilogue. If I can just get out of my head about the midpoint breakdown, I think I will be okay. I mean, I guess most of the chapters are really long in the back half. We'll see. Anyway, I'm not going to worry about that right now. But yeah, I think I have determined that it's coming back. The darling that was in the graveyard has risen, and she walks amongst us, or she will. With that said, I have to actually write chapter 16 now with this new configuration in mind. Writing chapter 16, hopefully getting it edited, and then that's probably going to be it. It's almost 9 o'clock. Not having to rewrite those last 4 chapters is going to make an enormous difference on my time, projections, which means I really only need to write 11 more chapters before the end of the month. The epilogue is staying basically identical. I don't think I need to change anything in that. I wonder how much I can say from the fight scene too, because I don't know if y'all remember, but like the fight scene really, really tripped me up in draft 1. It like I had to take a big break from the draft before I could really tackle it. It took me a while to really get through it. So anything I can copy from draft 1 would be a real big help, but the context has changed a lot. It's not even in the same location anymore. I'm going to stop yapping. I'm going to refill my water. I'm going to respond to these texts that keep coming through, and then I will sit down and draft chapter 16, hopefully feeling a hell of a lot better than I did an hour ago. All right, y'all. It is now just after 11 o'clock, actually approaching 11:30, and I am pleased to say that I did actually manage to finish chapter 16. Not without some effort, though, because after I finished the first half, I really, really wanted to call it there. It was about 10:30, and I was just so tired that I thought, you know what? I've already done some good work with planning out the last half of this book. I've been through some real mental challenges. I think it's okay if I just go to bed. But I didn't want to short myself on a week where I had already shorted myself plenty. And I really just wanted to get this chapter knocked out. Even though I was supposed to finish up 20 minutes ago so I could take a shower and get to bed, I pushed through and I did finish. I still need to edit through it, of course. And part of me believes that this would actually be better as 2 chapters, but both scenes are pretty short. But I finished, and that's what matters. The bad news is if this marks the midpoint, then I am projected to go about 6,000 words over my original estimate. So I will be updating my estimate to account for that, but we will just have to see how the rest of this book plays out, because I'm not entirely convinced that it will go that long. But on the other hand, it probably will. Murphy's Law, right? Of course, I'm going to try and keep it as thin as possible, but I am also cognizant that this is supposed to be a relatively finished and polished draft, since it is going to critique partners and beta readers. So I'm not going to sell it short either, just to keep it to a specific word count. So all told, I hit 2,452 words. I just crossed over the 48,000 word mark, and I believe this is the halfway point. It might have been chapter 15, but for now I'm going to call chapter 16 the halfway point just because of what's happening in the plot. All told, I hit my writing goal 3 times this week. And that's it. And I fell well short of the hours I intended to put in. But I really enjoyed my writing session yesterday, which is so weird because I hate first drafting so much. But I like the figuring things out and the puzzle pieces part. That's what I enjoy. And so being able to figure out how to plug all of my ideas into the puzzle is really enjoyable. And I feel really similarly about the work that I did earlier this evening and making the determination that I did. I'm really excited about that part because I think it'll make this second half of the book that much more intense, which is good because I was kind of worried that it would be a little dry. And more to the point, it addresses that factor I mentioned earlier where Arceli is kind of passive and just reacting to things and information that is being given to her. And so now with this new configuration, she takes a little bit more agency for herself and is actually driving the next section of the plot. Just that aspect of it alone suggests that putting this plot point and, narrative thread back in is the right choice. Because when I was rethinking this third act back in May, I hadn't really considered Arceli's agency and how passive she would become in that version of events. So I kept the best parts of that version, the scenes that make up this midpoint and this whole thread. It's all very, very good. But I've also, now done the work to make sure that the main character is not just an empty husk that the plot happens to. I'm pretty pleased. I'm not pleased about the word count, but it is what it is. And I'm not pleased about the fact that I only have, 18 days to write, 45,000 more words? Oh, I didn't even mention this earlier. In this new version, so I had talked about that big reveal that happens at 60% and how it was one way in the original outline, but it changed when I actually got to draft 1. And I was considering changing it back to the original outline version, but I was really, really struggling with how I was going to approach it in draft 3 because it wasn't really making a lot of sense to me and I hadn't yet to come up with the answer. By putting this plot point back in, it solves that completely. So now that whole section, I no longer have any questions about it. I'm no longer in doubt and I'm no longer fretting that I'm not going to come up with the answer by the time that I get there. And I know for a fact that it all fits in nicely with everything that came before and what comes after. All told, this was an enlightening, at times frustrating, but ultimately really, really positive writing session. And at the end of the week, writing week. This vlog is probably going to be an hour and a half long. It just goes to show you how much I have been engaged with not just the writing and the manuscript itself, but the content creation side of things too, because I know I've talked about it before that it's kind of a double-edged sword marrying the content creation to the writing, but the content creation does feed the writing. And so I think by doing this vlog, you can kind of see how those two things support each other in my brain. Because if I didn't have people to share it with, it would feel just so much lonelier and so much harder to re-engage myself during the hard times. So appreciate you guys. If you are still here, I owe you a coffee. But for now, thank you so much for watching. I so appreciate it. If you like my content and want to support the channel, please like and subscribe or consider leaving a comment down below. If you made it all the way to the end of this video, leave me a comment to encourage me to keep up the good work and get through this crunch period and get this damn manuscript done on time. In my next video, I will be revealing the tarot deck I have selected for my next writing project, Daughters of Necessity. I hope you look forward to it, and I will see you then. Bye.
Love more today. It's gonna play out the same.